All right, good evening. Good evening and welcome back. So, this evening's discussion will continue on Ukraine's small invasion into Russia's Kursk region. We're going to talk about a lot of the high stake gambles amid Russian advances. We're also going to talk about, towards the end of the video, the CIA and 70 years of indoctrination inside Ukraine. Here is our introduction. We will first hear a 6-minute audio from a friend in Ukraine, providing firsthand insights into the ongoing situation, which we'll discuss tonight. As the war between Ukraine and Russia escalates, Ukraine has launched a bold incursion into Russia's Kursk region, marking its largest ground operation on Russian soil since the conflict began. This offensive, which commenced on August 6th, is a strategic maneuver aimed at diverting Russian forces from significant advances near Toretsk and Donetsk regions. Recent reports detail a dramatic dashcam video showing civilians narrowly escaping attacks by Ukrainian soldiers near Sudzha, highlighting the conflict's increasing spillover into Russian territory. The fighting has also disrupted the flow of natural gas through the Druzhba pipeline, leading to lowest supply levels since May of 2023, and raising concerns about energy security in Europe. Furthermore, the advance brings Ukrainian forces dangerously close to the Kursk Nuclear Power Plant NPP, raising fears that the facility could become a bargaining chip in negotiations over the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia NPP, their nuclear power plant. Russian military leadership, including Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov, faces scrutiny for allegedly ignoring intelligence warnings of Ukraine's buildup near the Kursk border. This has led to discontent within the Kremlin, although Gerasimov's current position remains secure. As Ukrainian forces continue their offensive in Kursk, the European Union has expressed full support for Ukraine's right to defend itself, despite Russian officials labeling the incursion a terrorist attack. Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to Ukrainian President Zelensky, has framed the incursion as a direct consequence of Russia's aggression, stating that the war has its own rules. This high-stakes operation underscores the shifting dynamics of the conflict as Ukraine seeks to impose new pressures on Russia, despite the significant risks involved as the situation unfolds. The Kursk incursion could have profound implications for both sides, influencing future negotiations and the broader course of the war. Beautiful. As I share the screen over, we're going to listen to a 6-minute audio from a friend in Ukraine discussing this topic.
You know something, Jared? I was thinking about it. It came to my mind. You know, I think. Ooh, I'm dying over here. You know, dying from too much food and cola. But, anyways, you know, I just realized something. It came to my mind, like, say, when I woke up, somewhere in between. You know, I think in a way, I knew that the Kursk thing was gonna occur but 2 years ago. And I'll explain the reason why, and maybe this makes sense for you. You know, back in June of 2022, I knew some people. Some of them were Americans, but they were, well, the best way to put it is they were off duty, or, you know, they were like you. They were not in the service, but they were previously. And I was in a conversation. It's not that I was in it, but they were sitting by and they had a conversation. And that we were all sitting at the same table. And, you know, they said something which I thought was strange, but yet I kind of thought, oh, maybe this is for that or this is for that. So, you know, at one time, I remember them saying, hey, we have some bases near the Belarusian border, and we have some training grounds near the Belarusian border. And they kept talking about if Belarus invades, if Belarus invades. And then they said something to the effect of, you know, that they were going to take back Kharkiv, and they were going to do this, and they were going to do that, and they were going to do this. But the big thing about it is that they were places very close to the border with Belarus, and they were training people there. Now, maybe I have it wrong. And also, one of these guys is a spook. And if you know what I mean, you know what a spook is. I met him, and he looked younger than me. And he told me that he was listed as a KIA, a killed in action, because there was the thing in Lviv that got bombed that was the Friendship Center. And he was on that place as a list as being there. But he was very much alive. I was talking with the guy. And he was something like, he was not Marines, but he was not Air Force, but he was somewhere in between. And he was not like a Delta Force or whatever. He had just said that he did some special service. That's all he would say. And now, to understand all of this, that is connected to another person I know. And you know, there's another person I know that you would love to talk to, but he will not talk on a YouTube channel about it. He's let's say like the mist in the clouds. And he is American, and I know him, and I can contact him at any time. And he's been in Ukraine probably since 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And he's very well known in the Ukrainian government, very well known. As I was once told, if something bad was to happen, he's a good guy to have on your side to resolve any problems and that. So regardless of what it is, this is if you wanted to talk to him one day, and he was in the service too, you would have to be here and that. Now, I know that might take a year or two or something, but he would only talk to you in person, and it probably would not be on camera and that, because the best way to put it is I shouldn't even be mentioning him as well. But I mentioned him because I think it would be in your interest in that. And let's just say he has quite a few call signs on the internet. If you dig around for certain things, please think of, well, you know, not Batman Returns, but let's say like antagonist to Dark Knight. Think that way. And everything else. And there's quite a few other call sign names. So it's one of them things like that.
All right. So I tried to bring you all the voices on the ground. So now we're going to talk about a dramatic dash cam video from Russia's Kursk region. It shows a pair of civilians narrowly escaping an attack by Ukrainian soldiers near the town of Sudzha. The footage captures a car dodging anti-tank mines and being fired upon as driver frantically tries to flee. The incident occurred amid ongoing clash between Ukrainian troops and Russian forces as Kiev forces attempted to push deeper into Russian territory. Local media also reported that the video was filmed the day it was published. Another group of civilians in the area also encountered mines and witnessed the aftermath of the attacks. Although they were not directly targeted, a senior Ukrainian official, Mikhail Polak, stated that the intention beyond such action is to instill fear in the Russian population to weaken support for their government. Okay. So here is the dash cam video. It's about 3 minutes long. Let's watch it.
Шит. Не знаю. Дорогу смотри, не наступает на геет.
Вот битая тачка. Мины. Да ну поехать надо отсюда. Мины стоят, стреляют.
Так, все забрал. Куда заезжать? Куда заезжать?
Стекло разбили на пай, уезжали отсюда.
Не надо на Курск. На Курск не надо.
А куда?
Не надо на Курск, там мины, слушай.
По нам стреляют. Окно выбил в машине.
Да вижу.
Едем отсюда. Па!
Ну что ты? Дорогу смотри.
Надо уезжать сразу.
Не взорвали?
Разворачиваемся.
А?
Останавливаться?
Машины.
Нет, останавливаться нельзя. Да ну, вон мины опять стоят. Па, я разворачиваю и летим отсюда.
Машины что? Машины что?
Да вроде едет. Валим отсюда.
Там же мины стоят.
Проедем. И колесо, походу, пробили.
Пробили?
Я не знаю. Все окна разбили в машине практически.
Смотри, мины.
Вижу я мины. Вот, прям по нам, собаки.
Смотри здесь.
Вижу мины эти. Надо, чтобы по ним не попали сейчас. Окна поразбивали, твари, а?
Да ладно, окна.
Ага, сейчас.
Машина не нагрелась?
Нет, все нормально.
Смотри, машина.
Да ну,
Все заминировано там все. Это же наши заминировали?
не знаю. Просто прям начали стрелять по машине и все.
А?
Просто по машине начали стрелять.
Не нагрелась?
Нет. Собаки, а? Мне, конечно, можно было поехать, но... Зачем?
Да кто его знает дальше что? Ой, Господи. Колеса нормально?
А сейчас остановится, уедем. Останавливаться?
Да, останови, останови. Там бомбят, там бомбят.
Well, I'm going to say that's why dash cams are also important, right? All right, so let's move on with the rest of my report. So Slovakia's former economy minister Karol Herman has warned of significant consequences following a Ukrainian military attack in Russia's Kursk region, which has disrupted the flow of natural gas through the Druzhba pipeline. The volume of gas has decreased to 37.25 million cubic meters, the lowest since May of 2023, following Ukrainian forces' takeover of Sudzha gas stations during heavy fighting. Herman highlighted the risk of Russian gas supplies being wholly halted in Slovakia. Although seeking seeking alternative sources, the situation remains cautious. The attack is part of a broader strategy by Ukraine amid its stealing aimed. It's part of a broader strategy by Ukraine aimed at instilling fear in the Russian population. I said in my introduction, as stated by the advisor to President Zelensky. Despite these developments, Russian gas has continued to flow through Ukraine even after the onset of hostilities in February 2022. Interesting. The Sudzha station remains the last operational gas medium station between the two countries, following the closure of others due to the conflict. Also, the European Union, has expressed full support for Ukraine's recent cross-border attack on Russia's Kursk region, with European Commissioner spokesman Peter Stano affirming Ukraine's right to defend itself, attentively, including by striking Russian territory. This endorsement follows a significant incursion by Ukrainian forces into the region, which resulted in at least 5 civilian deaths and 31 injuries, including children, according to the Russian officials. Russian President Putin condemned the attack as a deliberate provocation targeting civilians despite the incursion. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that the Ukrainian advance was repelled with significant casualties and equipment losses on the Ukrainian side. The EU's support underscores its backing of Ukraine's efforts to reclaim territories. At the same time, the U.S. has reiterated that Ukraine's action do not violate its policy on the use of American-supplied weapons. Russian officials, however, have criticized the incursion as a terrorist attack aimed at inciting panic. Here's a statement from Putin. Ukrainian forces are conducting indiscriminate fire from various types of weapons, including rocket weapons, at civilian buildings, homes, ambulances, Putin said at a government meeting.
Have to begin with the developments in the Kursk region. As we know, the Kiev regime is making another large-scale provocation, shooting indiscreetly, using all kinds of weaponry, including missile weaponry, targeting civilian buildings, ambulances.
All right, so as of August 8th, 2024, intense battles continue in Russia's Kursk Oblast, specifically in the Sudzha and Korovatsky border districts, following a Ukrainian incursion that was on August 6th. The Russian Defense Ministry claims its forces are actively engaging Ukrainian troops in these areas, with Russian President Putin condemning the operation as a large-scale provocation. Ukrainian troops have reportedly advanced up to 10 kilometers into Russian territory, breaching several defense lines, according to the Institute for the Study of War. Right? Despite these developments, Kiev has remained largely silent on the operation. Concurrently, Russia has closed 3 train stations in Kursk Oblast for passenger transport due to the ongoing conflict, and a Russian airstrike on Ukraine's Sumy Oblast has resulted in the deaths of 2 civilians, including a 6-year-old child. Ukrainian officials suggest that these operations in Russian border regions could possibly impact future negotiations. Moscow. Another reporting, Valery Grizimov, chief of the Russian General Staff, talked about him earlier, reportedly ignored intelligent warnings about a Ukrainian troop buildup near the Kursk Oblast border. According to a Bloomberg report on August 8th, attentively, Ukrainian forces crossed into Kursk Oblast on August 6, leading to clashes on Russian territory. Despite intelligence alerts as early as 2 weeks prior, Grizimov and other top officials allegedly dismissed the threat, and Russian President Putin was not informed. The situation has raised concern within the Kremlin. Though Grizimov is unlikely to be removed immediately, Putin has labeled the Ukrainian incursion a large-scale provocation, accusing Ukrainian forces of targeting civilian infrastructure. Kursk Oblast, which borders Ukraine's Sumy Oblast, has been under frequent attacks since Russian troops were pushed out in April 2022. Ukrainian President Zelensky, in his August 8th address, hinted at the ongoing conflict without directly referencing the battles in Kursk, emphasizing that Russia should experience the consequences of its aggression. Mike Hawley Polak, who is the advisor of Ukrainian President Zelensky, broke Ukraine's silence on the ongoing conflict in the Russia-Kursk region on August 8, attributing the turmoil of Russian aggression. He emphasized that the escalation, including the fighting and destruction of Russia's Kursk and Belgorod regions, is a direct consequence of Russia's actions, stating, "War is war that has its own rules, and the aggressor always reaps the appropriate fruits." This marks the first official comment from Ukrainian authorities on the situation since Ukrainian forces began their offensive in the region 3 days earlier. The offensive, described as Ukraine's most significant ground incursion into Russia during the war, aims to divert Russian troops from other areas, potentially reducing the intensity of the attacks in eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian politician echoed this strategic goal. Russia's Ministry of Defense acknowledged the incursion but provided limited details, focusing instead on repelling the attacks. Ukrainian forces, including the 22nd Mechanized Brigade, reportedly attacked with hundreds of infantry, tanks, and armored vehicles, leading to fierce battles in the Kursk Oblast. President Zelensky, while not directly mentioning the operation in his August 7th address, stressed the importance of increasing pressure on Russia to hasten the war's end. Also, the Ukrainian military's excursion into Russia-Kursk region appears to be a strategic maneuver aimed at distracting Russian forces from their advances in eastern Ukraine, particularly near Toretsk and Donetsk region. According to a report by the Financial Times, this operation seeks to alleviate pressure on Ukrainian defenses, which have been struggling to hold back Russian troops, threatening a critical supply route. So they say, right? Over recent days, Russian forces have made significant progress near Toretsk, pushing towards the TO 504 road, which could enable them to capture more of the Donetsk region. The situation has jeopardized the gains Ukraine has made during the 2023 counteroffensive. In response, Ukraine launched a sudden attack on the Kursk region on August 6, hoping to divert Russian attention and resources. The Kursk region, particularly around Sudzha city, is strategically important due to a critical railway line for Russian troop supplies. Additionally, Ukraine's proximity to Kursk Nuclear Power Plant raises concerns that the facility would become a bargaining chip, potentially impacting the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. Amid these developments, reports indicate that the Kursk NPP's security is under strain. Most male staff are mobilized for Russia's war effort, leaving the plant inactively guarded. This situation underscores the broader risks and strategic complicities as the conflict is evolving. So as we get ready to close out, so other perspectives to think about. A recent article claims that Ukrainian forces launched a reckless invasion into Russia's Kursk region, allegedly aiming to seize a nuclear power plant. This piece also argued that the U.S. unauthorized this operation, creating tensions between Washington and Kiev. It suggests that Kiev's desperation, possibly driven by dwindling U.S. support, led to this rogue action, which risks triggering a more significant conflict involving NATO. The article also criticized both the Ukrainian government's action and U.S. foreign policy, implying that the misstep could hasten the downfall of the Ukrainian regime. Ukraine's recent attack on Russia's Kursk region offers 5 key lessons that could influence Russian military strategy. Targeting the Dnieper bridges. Russia may need to consider destroying bridges across the Dnieper River to prevent the flow of Western arms into conflict zones, prioritizing military objectives over concerns about civilian impact. 2, improved intelligence and reduced groupthink. Enhancing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR, while reducing internal groupthink, could help Russia better anticipate and respond to such attacks. Preemptive resettlement and stronger, broader defenses. Establishing security zones through preemptive resettlement. Enhanced physical defenses along the border could mitigate the risk of future incursions. Number 4, state-supervised border militias. Creating border militias under strict state supervision, possibly with embedded FSB agents, might provide additional security and local defense capabilities. This is for Russia, right? Active defense strategy, adopting an active defense approach involving regular low-level attacks could keep Ukraine balanced and reduce the risk of further surprises. Also, Ukraine's attempt to bring the war onto Russian soil reflects a profound misunderstanding of Russia's longstanding military strategy of trading land for time and space, which ultimately exhausts attackers. This approach is hazardous given Russia's status as a nuclear power and its leader's ominous declaration about the country's survival. However, Ukraine's actions are heavily influenced by the years of U.S. promises of support, with prominent figures like Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham pledging extensive aid if Ukraine fights Russia, reinforcing Ukraine's resolve despite the inherent dangers. The U.S. has also influenced Ukrainian actions for decades, often steering them in particular directions. This influence is rooted in emotional thinking, shaped by 70 years of U.S. indoctrination through programs like Prologue, Project Aerodynamic, Project Icon, and QR Plum. These initiatives were designed to shape public opinion and policy in Ukraine, fostering a mindset aligned with U.S. interests. This deep-seated influence has contributed to the current Ukrainian stance, despite the significant risk. So here are some of these declassified CIA documents talking about some of this. So this one is talking about QR Plum. And also in it, it mentions Prologue. Right? So I'll put the links. So if you click on the link for the full report, I'll have these links in there. So here's another one. These are good reads. Declassified CIA file, Project Aerodynamic. They all talk about Ukraine, right? This one was approved back in what? 1967. February 15, 1967. Right? No. So these are all good reads. This one talks about how since 1949, the CIA has supported Ukrainian Supreme Liberation Council. Right? So these are all interesting reads. But we're going to get ready to close out. Right? I kind of like dropped some of this in here for fun, right? Towards the end. And try to give you all the perspectives that are on the ground. Right? I do the best I can. Right? You should do your own research. Right? I give you the most objective opinions I can. A lot of my commentary came from War News 24/7. It's a Greek international site. RT News was another source. I used source from the Kiev Independent and also the Kiev Post and other areas, right? To give you different perspectives, all objectively driven, to give you what's going on, right? So I hope you all enjoyed this. I think it was good. Yep, we're going to close out. Right, so thank you all again for following. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a blessed day. JPCE Spiritual Talk. Never, ever hold back, right? Seek him, though, right? Be a follower of Christ. I love you all so much. I'm out.